Surging UFC Light Heavyweight prospect Magomed Ankalaev is keen to get his hands on champion Alex Pereira, calling the Brazilian out on X recently after Pereira's huge knockout win over Jamahal Hill at UFC 300. Magomed has been somewhat of a boogeyman of the light heavyweight division and would appear to be next in line for a crack at the belt, most recently TKOing Johnny Walker. His record stands at 18-1, with his sole loss being a triangle choke from the Bear Jew Paul Craig. Taking to X recently to stake his claim, Ankalaev said, at Alex Pereira UFC, "Congratulations, I will stop in the first round by knockout. At Dana White, at McMated2, the man doesn't have a chin." After the fight at UFC 300, Pereira hinted at a move up to heavyweight to try to become the UFC's first three-division champion. Dana White was quick to pour cold water on this idea, saying it's a bad idea for Pereira to fight Aspinall at this point. And given how confusing the heavyweight championship picture is at the moment, with two champions and a contender in Miocic that hasn't competed in 3 years, Dana probably doesn't need another contender muddying the waters further. I think the fans and pundits are also growing a little tired of champions holding up divisions by pursuing belts in different weight classes. However, going from middleweight all the way up to heavyweight would be a pretty spectacular achievement. A matchup with Ankalaev and Pereira seems to be the logical move, and given he didn't walk out with too much damage, besides some broken toes, Pereira could potentially be back in the octagon soon. Obviously, the spectacle of Max Holloway's knockout on Justin Gaethje had the MMA world buzzing online this week, and it's worth dissecting what Joe Rogan had to say during the broadcast. Initially, when experiencing the knockout live on the broadcast of UFC 300, Rogan stated, "That's the greatest knockout of all time." With so many people counting him out, with so many people thinking he was outgunned, with so many people thinking he wouldn't have a chance against the firepower of Justin Gaethje, the fact that he called for that with 10 seconds left in the fight and put the lights out on one of the most dangerous men to ever fight in the sport. The fact that he did it this way too, that he just pointed to the center of the octagon and said, "Let's throw down right here," and then just sleeps Justin Gaethje with one punch. Where a lot of people thought he was going to get hurt, he looked so good. He's better than ever, and he looks sensational. Now, obviously, experiencing something like that live would elevate your excitement levels and might add to the effects of exaggerating your perspective. But even with that in mind, do you believe it was the greatest knockout of all time? Rogan included that you have to factor in the context of the situation. But all great knockouts have a backstory, such as when Leon Edwards was counted out of the Kamaru Usman fight and knocked him out late. It is almost certainly up there with the greatest knockouts of all time. But do you believe it's the best of all time? Is it recency bias striking again? Let me know in the comments. MMA legend and candidate for greatest of all time, Georges St. Pierre has weighed in on the highly anticipated upcoming middleweight bout between the undefeated Khamzat Chimaev and former champion Robert Whittaker. In their last time out, Chimaev got the nod in a close fight against Kamaru Usman that fans speculated might have played out differently if it was a 5-round fight. Whittaker last time out was also a close fight, getting the nod against the proprietor of Secret Juice, Paulo Costa. The fight will be a good test for both fighters. Can Chimaev pass the Whittaker test, which in the last decade has meant that anyone who has will ultimately go on to become champion? And can Whittaker stop the wrestling onslaught from Chimaev, and will his chin hold up? After some questions of durability have been raised since getting rocked in the first round against Costa and being TKO'd by Dricus du Plessis. According to former two-division champion Georges St. Pierre, if anyone can stop Chimaev, it's Whittaker. But he added the caveat that it will not be an easy fight. Speaking to Fox Sports Australia, St. Pierre said, "Well, if there is a guy that can stop Chimaev, it's Robert Whittaker. Because if you look at Chimaev, he has we can compare it in a way to Yoel Romero. Romero was a very good wrestler, very explosive and powerful guy. And Whittaker was the kryptonite of Yoel Romero. He was able to beat him twice, so stylistically, he's very capable of doing the same to Chimaev, to make Chimaev look bad. Robert Whittaker has a very unusual style. He comes from a karate background like I do. Karate background, we have a very different style. We use different timings to blitz in, and the way we can control distance, it seems very unusual for our opponents because most of the guys in the mixed martial arts world are from kickboxing and Muay Thai backgrounds. So when you're from karate, I think that's one of the things that sort of gives you an edge. And Robert Whittaker utilizes all his karate skills very, very well. His footwork and control of distance, he's a master at it. He's going to have to be on his A game because Chimaev is no joke, and he seems unstoppable right now. It's interesting to see how Chimaev has had more trouble than we have seen previously with two welterweights in the past, in Gilbert Burns and more recently Kamaru Usman. Robert Whittaker isn't the biggest middleweight by any stretch, but the extra size with his skill set seems to benefit him in the matchup stylistically. That's what's happening in MMA this week. Like and subscribe and leave your undoubtedly controversial opinions in the comments below. Thank you.